There has been a major trade update regarding Cam Whitmore, and it can have major implications on what team he plays on next year, as GM Rafael has a huge decision to make. Should we keep the young star for the next few seasons, or should we trade him away for new future assets? It's been one of the most lingering questions this offseason for the Houston Rockets, and we're going to break down the new update right here on Rockets Digest, where we break down the latest news, rumors, and updates regarding your H-Town team. I'm your host, Donovan Ricondo, and we're going to get straight into things here today. We're here to talk about Cam Whitmore, who has been the subject of a lot of mock trades this past offseason, in a deal for Kevin Durant and a deal for Giannis Antetokounmpo. But is there some, realness to that conversation? Has there been a report that specifies that, yes, the Rockets are taking those calls? There it is. From Kelly Iko, his report that dropped this week, it says that the Rockets are getting calls from around the league about Cam Whitmore. And this doesn't really come as a huge surprise, but it is very interesting that this is happening in the Houston front office. What teams are calling about Cam Whitmore, that remains to be known. That is a question that needs to be answered. But nevertheless, a lot of teams are interested in this young guy who has huge offensive potential, fantastic young cat. And so we're going to go to what Kelly Iko said in that report. He said, quote, "A handful of teams have inquired about the availability of sparingly used wing Cam Whitmore," league and team sources said. Since being drafted with the number 20 pick in 2023, Whitmore has struggled to entrench himself in Udoka's tight rotation and at times has expressed his displeasure at the end of the bench. But there is still optimism about his potential end rotation spot, having shown strong periods of play over the last 2 seasons. At this stage, neither Whitmore nor his representation has requested a trade, and both sides are hopeful of finding a solution. Now, this, in a way, is some good news, right? There is no signs of high-stake drama. There is an intent, and there is a task at hand to make things work here in Houston. As GM Rafael Stone and Ime Udoka has said, continuity is something they would love to have on this Houston Rockets team. Now, whether or not that includes Cam Whitmore is a question that's to be answered this offseason. But as of right now, there is not a trade that they've requested. They are trying to make things work with Houston. I believe his representation thinks Houston is a great spot for Cam, playing on a young, upcoming team who has playoff potential under the direction of head coach Ime Udoka, who has been a solid head coach in the NBA, third place this year for the NBA Coach of the Year award. So there's not a lot of other teams that you can possibly hope to be on. Now the question is minutes, right? Is Cam Whitmore, is my player that I am representing, gonna get the minutes that he so obviously wants to play? We'll get a little bit deeper into the body language, as I have a couple of opinions on that. And I want to go to this next quote regarding Cam Whitmore. This comes from Nick Stevenson from the Dream Shake. He says, quote, "Trade scenarios and rumors about Cam Whitmore make sense. However, for all the reasons that Iko highlighted in the quote above, Cam didn't crack the rotation very much at all. And when he did, it was because of injury. After a rocky start to the 2024-2025 season, a brief stint in the G League seemed to infuse him with confidence upon his return, and Rockets fans again saw those flashes of offensive brilliance, coupled with his immense athleticism," end quote. And he is not lying. He went back to the G League for a little bit this season, averaging 19 points, 5 assists, 2 rebounds in that span. That is a little bit down from his first year in the G League, where he was averaging 26 points. Nevertheless, the confidence that he was able to get from that was very evident in those games that he played for the Rockets this season. Now, he did not play very much. He did not play many minutes either. But from the minutes that he did play, he has shown signs of that offensive brilliance. These are his stats from the past 2 years of 47 games that he played in his rookie year. This past season, he played in 51 games, averaging 2 minutes less from his rookie year. 12 points his rookie year, 9 points this year. Still, nevertheless, I think 9 points in a 16-minute span isn't really that bad for a guy in his second year in the NBA. His field goal percentage is in the mid 40s, 3-point percentage is in the mid 30s. So there's some upside there. And so Cam Whitmore is showing signs of being that player that they can use, that the Rockets can use in the future. And now it's just a question, is that something that the Rockets are going to do next season? Is that going to happen? Is he going to have to wait another year? Is there a spot for Cam Whitmore in this rotation? And that question remains to be answered. It really and honestly does. There is no clear answer yet. Now, to be fair to the Houston coaching staff, what's the thing about Whitmore that is kind of, holding him back, I guess? And Nick Stevenson reports, quote, however, as Rockets fans know, it was not all sunshine and rainbows. Cam Whitmore may have the worst poker face in the NBA. His frustrations were very evident by his body language and cryptic answers to reporters. When pressed about his lack of playing time, somehow he seemed perplexed at what he needed to do to earn more time and the floor. And his head coach was perplexed at Whitmore being perplexed. All in all, it became evident as the season went on that Whitmore's role on the team for this season was not essential to the immediate goal of winning, end quote. And that is something that I do want to take into account. Yes, Cam Whitmore, he was the 20th pick in the first round of the 2023 draft. He has huge upside. But at the same time, body language, anybody that's played basketball and has had a good head coach, they tell you body language is so crucial to your minutes and your playing time on the team. Not only does it affect you and your playing time, but that affects the entire team. You can't have a bad apple on the team that is showing, visible signs of frustration. Yes, it's okay to have that frustration when it comes on the court, when a play is not made or whatever it may be, as long as it doesn't get over to a certain point. But to have that over not playing and, doing this cryptic stuff to the reporters is not something that head coach Ime Udoka is going to put up with. That is not something that he is going to just let happen on the court. He's going to put you in check. This is a guy who comes from a linear coaching tree where that was infused in all the players that he worked with as an assistant back in his time on the Spurs, back when he was head coach with the Boston Celtics. He is not going to put up with it. And Cam Whitmore suffered that kind of a pushback from head coach Ime Udoka and this coaching staff, not giving him the minutes and not inserting him in that rotation because of his body language and because of potential attitude problem, whatever it may be. And so body language and to have that can be detrimental for a young player like Cam Whitmore. Yes, he has a lot of talent, but that is not something you want on your team. It's a team killer, and for a team that's wanting to build a culture that is going to put this team past the first round and continue to make playoff pushes every single year, you cannot have a player like that on your team. So that is something that Cam Whitmore himself is going to have to work on. And Ime Udoka has said a lot about Cam Whitmore in terms of what his thoughts are on him and what the scenario is for Cam Whitmore heading into next season. Yeah, he had this to say regarding Cam Whitmore and the young guys on the team like Reed Shepard. He said, quote, "We're not the typical young team. We stockpiled so many great players. It's tougher to get minutes. Every year is different. The development will come. We have full belief in our young guys. When Reed and Cam have played, you've seen what they can do." So we see here that Ime Udoka knows, he understands Cam Whitmore does have the potential to be something great, to be that player that we need him to be that offensive scorer. Jalen Green is going to be our main guy. If we're going to keep him, great. But Cam Whitmore can come off the bench and he can help get us some buckets, help, spark that second unit and be the spark we need in those games where it's very, very tight and it's very, very close and you have to come out and with a win. Now, he also had this to say about Cam. He says, quote, "We have had in-depth confos with Cam, probably more than anybody. Ton of potential there, but consistency, key word, consistency is the main thing, and he knows that," end quote. And consistency is all you can ask for in a young player, right? And that's not only consistency on the court. Yes, Cam Whitmore can get it done on the court. He can show those signs of athleticism and score in a lot of different ways. but consistency also off the court. When you go to the bench or you're not getting minutes, you cannot be inconsistent on what your behavior and what you're feeling at that moment. You can't be so visibly frustrated. We need someone to be a team player and buy into what we are trying to do on this roster. Yes, you are not getting the minutes that you want, and that kind of sucks. You're not playing as a young player can be detrimental to your growth and your development. But if you're going to be on this team, if you haven't requested a trade, if you're buying into what we are selling, you cannot have those instances in which you are being inconsistent with your behavior and how you act on the bench. And so that is something that Ime Udoka, they said they've had conversations. I'm sure he said this to his face, so there's no sugarcoating it at all, especially in the NBA. You're a professional. You're there to get better, and you're there to win basketball games, right? You got to be honest in that process. And so when I hear these trade talks, it's very interesting because on one hand, the Houston Rockets firmly believe that this is a guy they can invest in the future. They know that he is capable of so many things, but at the same time, is this kind of Achilles heel, is this kind of setback going to set them back? And so is it worth pursuing that trade? Now, there's a bunch of teams making calls. What teams those are, we do not know yet. But if the trade makes sense, right? If we were talking about a Giannis trade, would Cam Whitmore be in that package? He seems to be one of the leading candidates in a package if teams are expressing interest. The Bucks would love to have a guy like Cam Whitmore. The Phoenix Suns, if a KD trade were to be made, they would love to probably have a guy like Cam Whitmore. He is probably the guy on the Houston roster that they were willing to trade that has a huge and tremendous upside. But now the question is, what do you guys think? Because I've seen a lot of the comments and I've seen a lot of back and forth and differing of opinions. And I'm curious to know what the consensus is, rather. Do you believe that we should trade Cam Whitmore? Do you think it is a priority for this team? Do you think it is necessary? Do you think it is unnecessary? Do you think he's a player we should invest in for the future? Let me know. Cam Whitmore, trade or do we not trade? Let me know in the comments. And if you've made it to the end of the video, that tells me you are a true Rockets fan. You are loving this content. If you want to stay in the loop with all your Rockets content this entire offseason, we got you covered. We're uploading 2 videos today. Me and Jace have got you covered. And so for Rockets Digest, I am Donovan Ricondo. Let me know in the comments. Take care.